Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Books. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Gifted. So quite a few things went down this episode, so let's break everything down. First of all, we have the Purifiers kind of going much harder than they had before, like even going as far as attacking a church. And it turns out that was all part of a trap to lead them. It's kind of like, oh, we'll get you to run away, then you'll lead us to like further mutant underground people, and we can kind of round you up all at once, essentially. The sad thing is the purifiers, like especially in Jace's case, because he's still keeping that perspective of like, no. Like the world is going to think you're a hate group. All you have to do is switch their perspective. We can make them see that like, oh, we're, because even his justification of like, hey, we're not going to go in here guns blazing. We're going to give them a chance to surrender because they're the murderers and terrorists. We're the good guys. And it's so interesting because it almost seems like Jace is having to convince himself because of that look on his face. It looks like someone who doesn't really 100% believe what he's saying. Like, I'm sure he feels the way he does about the mutants, but even that, there shows you that there is part of him that doesn't want this whole situation to turn into into the hate-filled group that this group could potentially be, because it's like, he doesn't want anyone on any side to get hurt. And obviously, sadly, in the end, he ended up killing Shatterstar because Shatter ended up killing someone else. And it's like, it didn't go down the way he thought it would. I think even when it's all said and done, it's like, oh, you're one of us now. And I think that really bothers him because it's like, once again, it's like your wife asked you before, like, what line are you crossing? What are you doing in our daughter's name? And it's like, now you're going even further. Also, it seems like the Purifiers are legitimately a full-on organized organization. It's just so interesting. Like, I guess it makes sense that they would be because it turns out it's like, oh, the leadership told us to blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, wait, so there's a hierarchy to this situation, which is like, well, it kind of makes sense, which is interesting because now there's like three main groups. There's the Purifiers, there's the Mutant Underground, and then there's the Inner Circle. So there's that whole complicated situation all on its but it's like, I'm wondering who this like leadership is. It's probably people in higher positions and stuff like that trying to make all this happen. Cause wasn't the dude that Lorna killed last season, that politician dude, wasn't he like a senator or something? He was a purifier too, wasn't he? Or at the very least, it's connected to him at the very least. But because we know that the Purifiers have connections because, like, the organization Creed Financials that gets brought up this episode, they are connected to a lot of travesties of just kind of, like, slavery when it comes to mutants in the past, as well as, like, funding a lot of anti-mutant stuff, like Purifiers, for example. So, but I'm interested to see what happens with Jace's situation because I think it's because also the distance between him and his wife, that kind of plays a role in all of this too. Just like I said, he was sick and tired. And even when he was working with Sentinel Services, he got triggered and was driven, but he was never driven like, oh, I'm gonna kill these mutants. It's like, no, we're here to get justice. It's like, yeah, even if these mutants didn't do anything wrong necessarily, like nothing on the very heavy side of things, but their way of handling things is criminal. So we're bringing them to justice. So there's a little bit of honor to. He is an honorable man. He's just going about it the very wrong way, that his honor is kind of getting warped. Because even the dude was kind of like, oh yeah, like that guy you shot. Yeah, he's one of the people that supposedly died in Atlanta. But now look, your wife said you were crazy for believing that. But look, he's still alive. It's like, yeah, you're so right. And it's not like he took joy in that because it's just, he killed someone. No matter what the circumstances may be, even if it was under that situation, he still killed someone. And I think that's still rocked his mind because at the very least with Sentinel Services, there was at least an order to everything. Even if you didn't really like a lot of the politics and how it handled itself, there was still order and structure. The Purifiers kind of do whatever they want to. They're not bound to the same rules. He kind of even talked about it and even kind of said that was kind of the positive thing about them. But it's like, I just don't 100% think he's 100% in on this situation. So there's that. Lauren and Caitlin's meeting with Dr. Taylor. Caitlin didn't actually talk about it, which I thought was kind of interesting, was the fact is Lauren kind of snapped at her, like for one, destroying her phone like that. You even see Caitlin kind of look at it, but not. But I guess her elaboration later on about like, no, I put too much pressure on you. I'm telling you to be the one to bring Andy back. But I think, like, you're his sister. I'm asking too much of you. It's like, I'm his mom. Like, I will be the one to bring him back. I shouldn't put you in such a compromising position of like, yeah, because if she tries to bring her brother back, it's like, Andy doesn't want to come back. He believes in what they're doing, even in that dream and everything, which is so interesting because it seems like there's so many layers to that dream aspect because it seems like obviously it works both ways. it also seems like whatever happens in there does have some effect. So if Lauren, for example, hurt Andy in there, it seems like it would work in real life too, because she touched the safe and I guess she pricked her finger, because the moment she woke up, her finger was bleeding a little bit. So it's like that, I guess it's like a manifestation world between like their links. I think it's a manifestation. So it's like whatever happens in that mental plane will also physically affect their body. So that could be something we kind of see kind of pushed more later on. But because the thing is, like, Lauren's aggression kind of made me think of like Andy's words kind of getting to her, because it's like, oh, you're trying to help out a few mutants here and there, but it's like just getting them to Mexico and escape there isn't solving the bigger problem. We're inspiring people and we're trying to do a great thing for mutants. I mean, the sad thing is though, by doing this great thing you're doing, all you're doing is aggravating even more people. But it's like, oh, we're getting mutants out there in the streets, but you're aggravating an already crazy situation. But that also goes back to like, what even Erg said about like, oh, this idealism of like humans and mutants kind of coexisting is just as bad as what the inner circle has planned of kind of slaughtering humans, because it's just such a complicated thing, because it's like they're feeling the way they are because of the way humans and mutants have kind of coexisted, and it not being a very coexistent existence. So now they're trying to take a power back and try to create a world perfect for the mutants, but at the same time they're hurting a lot of humans, which is just going to fuel more fighting for the purifiers. Like they'll be taking up the human side. Like hate from humans will inspire them to rise up and fight the mutants, because Shatterstar talked about it too. It's like there are even people who were once allies no longer want to help them because of the attack on the facility that the inner circle did when they broke Rebecca out. So it's this double-edged sort of like, yeah, you're doing good, but you're also hurting the cause at the same time. But for them, their whole cause is only for mutants, but it's like you're making things harder for other mutants as well. So it's like I said, it's just kind of, like I said, it's kind of this endless loop of this just kind of hatred, just kind of feeding upon itself. So there's that. But that was just kind of an interesting thing. But like I said, like I think Lauren is kind of diving into it because she's like, Andy doesn't want to be saved. She's almost like, maybe we're the ones that need to be saved. And I'm curious what she necessarily meant by that. Was she referencing from the fact is that we're kind of out here on the cold, trying to handle things on our own, the mutant underground. We're trying to fight this lost cause, trying to fight for mutants, but it's like maybe we're the one that need to be saved from this cause that we're trying to, like, maybe maybe they're going about things the wrong way, but maybe they kind of have the right idea potentially. Maybe that's what Lauren's thinking. Like I said, maybe we're the one that's cast out in the cold that need to kind of be brought in. I don't know. That's kind of one way I feel like of kind of looking at it. That's kind of my thought process on it. So, but what was interesting was about Dr. Taylor's saying like, oh, I know you're not her family because that's how she killed them, which is interesting. Because also this episode elaborated on what I pretty much figured last episode. I was like, oh yeah, Rebecca could probably use her ability to kill people. So I was like, that's one angle of it. Didn't realize she's already done it, because it seems like Rebecca was already kind of disturbed from the beginning. I mean, granted, we don't know what her family situation was like. Maybe her family disliked her being a mutant. But the thing is, when you compare it to the rest of the group, no matter what the circumstances may be, like Marcos never killed his dad, even though his dad kind of turned against him for being a mutant and stuff like that. Yeah, he held spite for him, but he never killed. I mean, it's not that we know of. Last time we saw, like, Marcos was like, yeah, Dad, you're sick, let me take care of you. So there was still love there, even with the complicated relationship. The fact that she went out of her way to kill her family is like, either something's wrong with her, or maybe the fact that it didn't matter is when, like, they treated her badly. I mean, because we do know that she was abused and stuff like that in the facility. I mean, but to be fair, maybe the abuse started even back then. So maybe that, that was kind of her way of kind of defending herself. But maybe it's a situation of like, because when she got the opportunity, when she was in the facility, she ended up killing a guard. She turned him inside out. Like I said, I just wasn't expecting she had already done that. That was kind of interesting. So it's showing that fact is she has a dark side in her. And the fact of the matter is, Reva and others must know that aspect about her. So it's not just her ability, but probably who she is. Like, I mean, they're probably, I don't know if they're going to be willing to go as far as she is, but the fact is we're kind of seeing that she has that potential in her. Like, Andy's never killed anyone. Well, intentionally. There's the whole, like, him and Lauren using their powers in the whole Atlanta situation. So they unintentionally killed people then, but to actively just go out of your way to purposely use your powers to kill someone. That's and I'm curious to see what that's going to do going forward with Andy and Rebecca, like when that side of her eventually comes out, because it will. She'll probably be doing stuff. Because even the whole like her wanting to short a car and everything, you can kind of tell like Andy, like the last episode, like the whole police car situation, like you could tell Andy was kind of a little reluctant when it came to that. So the question then becomes like, what's going to happen with the whole Lauren situation? Because now Andy's going to be caught in a compromising position between the woman he's obviously got feelings for and his sister, his family. Even though this is supposed to be his new family, he's going to be kind of torn between the two, because I'm sure, because Lauren's like, I'm not going to give Andy a choice. If he's not going to come back on his own, I will beat him down to kind of do it. Because it's interesting because Caitlin had talked about the fact is her and John had talked about the whole fact is of mutants' abilities of constant like growing and essentially changing, and saying like, Andy's gotten stronger, but Lauren will most likely get stronger as well. So she's willing to fight Andy now if it means getting him back. So I'm curious to see what that ends up being, like how that situation ends up playing out. It's definitely going to be interesting with that whole dynamic all on its own. But another side of this episode also dealt with Lorna she doesn't like being led, blindly following orders. It's just not, in her forte. Like she's more the one kind of doing her own thing, but Reva won't explain like what they're up to, what they're trading for. Apparently they're hitting a bank. This bank is connected to Creed Financials, like obviously like I brought up earlier, who they are. And apparently they're also the ones that funded the lab that created the Frost Sisters, because it turns out, hey, they're actually clones. And it actually, sadly, we ended up finding out that it was originally 5, but now there's only 3. Because when they broke free, the other 2 ended up sadly dying. And it's kind of like they could, being who they are and being clones and being connected like that, especially when it comes to their abilities, means that, when they died, the other 2 died, like Esme felt it. Because Esme, out of any of the 3 remaining, she is a more emotional one. Even back then, she was the one to be like, I mean, they're clones and everything, but it's like, are they clones of someone original? So like, who are they based on someone? Or are we saying like Esme's because like the question is like, cloning makes you think like they came from some original person, like, hence. And that's why I'm wondering is like, are they all clones of Esme? Is she the original? Or are they all kind of clones of someone else? Like, I don't know. That's the question. But it's just interesting because the only one who seems to be very empathetic is Esme. Like the other sisters don't seem to share in that. Like obviously she got wounded from Marcos, and it's like, oh, that's your fault for doing it. And now because of you, we have to wear long sleeve shirts. Like we have to wear last season clothes just because of you. Thanks a lot. It's like such stupid things like that. And they're kind of making her feel guilty about that. Even her approach to try and handle the whole thing with Lorna. It's interesting because Esme, tried to help out with Dawn because Dawn was crying and stuff like that. And the moment later on when she started humming at him, I'm like, oh, that's probably not good. Because the moment she did that, it made Lorna realize, like, you were inside my baby's head. And it was like, dude, that sucks. Like, obviously, Esme later on, I was like, oh, she had the best of intentions, which is like more so, it's like, no, she needed to talk to you because it was like, oh, like, because Esme and her sisters believe so much in this mission that like, no, we need Lorna on our side for what's to come. So it's like, no, we need to, so whatever we need to get it done, which even Reva's kind of like, oh, we have to do whatever. We have to make sacrifices. So Lorna wasn't happy about that, was even choking her with her own chain using her power. And it's like, and Lorna's like, if you come near me and my baby again, I will kill you, which is like, ugh. Which is interesting because this is all about sacrifices and stuff like that. Because Esme is like, we can't really go through our entire lives like manipulating and controlling people to do what we want, and the other sisters are like, yeah, we can, that's what we've always done, that's who we are. But it's like, no, that because Esme kind of gave an interesting perspective to Reva, being like, basically, we can't control people. If you want people to stay by your side, fight for you, believe in this cause, you have to make them believe. Because if we give them this falsitude of making them do whatever we want to, that means when the time comes later on, they won't be fully dedicated to this thing, because they'll realize, oh, you were just using me, and that's just going to push Lorna away even more. And that's even what Esme said earlier. It's like, if you don't get her to trust you, you're going to lose her. But, Reva's like, sacrifices have to be made. And she's texting someone saying with QM, and it's like, oh, it's like on for dinner Thursday, and they're like, can't wait. And I'm like, okay. So Reva has another side of this whole situation. She's the whole inner circle thing. Like she was away, and they're like, oh, she was like, oh, I was doing something important, which maybe she was. But I think she's also got a family that she's keeping secret from this whole thing. They probably don't know that she's a mutant potentially. That's what I'm kind of chalking it up to. Like this whole side of her, she's kind of got that dual life thing of living just a normal life while also, so she's got the complication of like all what she's doing right now is going to jeopardize her other life. And I think that's what that is setting up, which is interesting considering the fact is the way Reva's kind of going so full throttle, you wouldn't expect it. I'm kind of thinking this isn't just like, oh, she's got a husband or something like that, or a significant other, whatever the case may be. I think it's the fact of the matter is, she's got someone special in her life and she's got kids. That's what I'm thinking. She might be married with kids. So we'll see if that ends up being the case or not. But after Esme talking to Lorna and telling her, like, I am on your side no matter what you choose to do, I'm on your side and Dawn's side. Like, I never want Dawn to feel the pain that I felt. The feeling of literally losing, you know, I lost my sisters. Like, she doesn't want Dawn to experience that by losing Lorna, because that's what Lorna's big thing is. Like, I'm not spending much time with my daughter because all this training, and potentially I could go out there and die leaving her all alone, and you want me to do that without you telling me what's going on. Which it also makes sense because Reva explained of being like, oh yeah, like, you know, you don't tell everyone the plan because they have deniability at the very least. Like, it keeps everyone in safe because you don't know the full plan because you only know what you need to know at the time. It makes it so that, I guess, on the chance that something happens, you don't know the full plan that someone can try and pull from you potentially. I don't know. That's kind of my thought of kind of her justification for it, because she's like, oh, not knowing everything is my way of protecting you. So there's that. And then finally, there's the whole situation, obviously, with, you know, Reed. What he's dealing with this episode, I think, is kind of interesting because, like, he's trying to use his powers. He's trying to act like he's all good and he's got it all under control because he wants a shortcut, because it's something even John talks about. The fact of the matter is, whatever it is that's driving your powers, whatever fear or whatever it is that you're not really dealing with, the fact of the matter is your dad robbed you of that chance of dealing with it when you were a kid, so now you kind of have to deal with it now. And even Shatterstar had tried to give him the perspective of, like, apparently the reason why Shatterstar looked the way he did, like, in the sense of, like, his, like, the cracks on his head and the his eye being white was because he tried to kill himself. Like, he didn't, as he said, he didn't knock the lights out completely, but it, you know, it was enough to break the windows a little bit, just because it's kind of like, if you don't deal with whatever you're not dealing with, it will make things much worse, which we kind of see that because now when Reed ended up activating his powers later on, now he can't shut them off. So that's the one ability you don't want to be active 24/7. And he's like, I can't stop it. So the question then becomes like, what is it exactly that he's not dealing with? It seems like it might not just be, obviously he had a lot of father issues kind of going on, but now even more so now knowing that what his dad did to him, experimented on. Because like I said, it's hard to say like whether Reed's abilities are hitting him so hard because they were so dormant for so long, and to kind of compensate for the fact is that he's a full-grown adult now. Like, he's lived a majority of his life without his ability, like 90% of his life without his abilities, that now his body's trying to catch up with that. Like, all that power is just kind of surging forward, or, you know, because it is tied to your emotions and stuff like that. So I guess it's kind of representative of just how unstable he kind of is at the time. Like, he's bearing a lot of stuff. It's not like he's kind of being an open book, even though he's worried about so much about Andy, about Lauren, about Caitlin, like the status of his family and just the status of everything, like, going forward. Plus, like, this whole thing of like, oh yeah, I'm a mutant and I'm just losing control. I just want control. I just want to deal, like, bury it, but he can't. Like, obviously that was the whole point of the pills, but that's no longer a viable option. He has to learn how to control his abilities. And now with them kind of being active like this, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this going forward. I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.